Hey, Grip Boy here. Hey, listen, this is a series of videos that will show you how in the middle of 2025, you can build a very durable quadcopter, both with easy to find parts, as well as something that is fully remote ID and FAA compliant. By the way, if you are having trouble finding these parts, please check out my site at searchfpv.com. Now, on to the videos. Okay, so next one, let's go ahead and why don't we take care of the capacitor now that we have everything sort of in a fit, and we'll kind of, I guess we'll work our way back. How does that sound? So I'm going to take the flight controller off. We're going to kind of get it out of the way here. So this is negative. This is going to go to the negative terminal. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to snip that guy right about, looks like here. That looks about right. All right. Positive is going to go right. Let's see. Oops. Let's make sure we're keeping that where he needs to go. Let's see. Positive is going right about there. So I think we snip him right there. That should be good. All right. Perfect. There we go. All right. Perfect. Okay. Flux. All right, a little bit of dab of solder on the tip here. There we go. Well, there we go. So now what we're going to do this may take a second on the heat transfer for that to a little blob of solder on the tip just to help with that heat transfer. There we go, check that out. Pardon that. Anyway, so let's get this. Yes. In fact, we'll use that little blob there to our advantage. We got a little bit of solder on the there, check that out. All right, now we're going to put our flight controller back on. Let's plug the ESC back in. Plug our DJI-04 air unit back in. Everything's fitting all right. And by the way, so I was looking at the diagram, and actually I think I'm going to change one thing. And I'm actually going to go ahead and run the GPS wire over the top. The gyro is on the bottom side of this flight controller, so I don't really have to worry too much about running electronics over the gyro since it's on the bottom. That's actually kind of a cool thing. But I will say that with these flight controllers that have all these plugs on the bottom, they are a little annoying because it does mean that you're not really able to run all the wires that you want to down there. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off a little bit. You probably want it about that long. I'm going to cut a little bit off of this so I got a little bit more wire to work with. There we go. Oh yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. Perfect. I like that. Okay, I can definitely get down with that. And then that means we're going to want to cut these little strands to about there. There we go. Now we're going to go ahead and tin these wires. And actually, one of the side effects of tinning these wires, which is kind of neat, is the heat transfers down. This heat shrink is actually going to shrink up a little bit and really hold these guys in place. So let's double check the diagram we made ourselves. Battery ground, then the yellow, then the white. Okay. Okay. This over here so that I can easily tin all of these. Flux on the ends of these. There we go. My tip probably go. Ouch, that was me touching the soldering iron. Don't do that, boys and girls. That is painful. Alright, we have tinned. Let's not forget to put lots of flux here too. We're just checking our wiring diagram. Okay, so we do the battery first. And watch me solder left-handed. Here we go. Always a treat. I don't know if anybody else out there is ambidextrous, but all right, let's hip hurrah for ambidexterity, huh? All right. There we go. All right, and then it is yellow. And then finally the white one. All right, there we go. Next is going to be the Crossfire receiver. So we'll take it. Now, of course, we're just going to be wiring it right here is where that thing goes. And I think, yeah, we decided we're going to go ahead and probably locate it here on top of the air unit. So first thing is we want to go ahead and put snap the antenna on. There we go. All right. Yeah, and just for the additional protection, of course, we're going to go ahead and we'll run the wires along the back, and we're going to run the antenna along the length here. Yeah, the fun part with these though is that there is the button right there that you kind of want to try to make it so you can poke it if you need to. So kind of try to run the antenna sort of that way so that the bind button is, you know, exposed should we need to hit it. Let me grab some Kapton tape now. And we'll work with that. It tends to be a little bit easier that way. Keep the antenna in there, really. Alright. There we go. And of course, you know, as I'm sure you've heard it mentioned before, one of the great reasons for using Kapton tape is so that you can see the indicator light on the receiver and be able to tell if, you know, something is not working exactly the way you think it should. So there we go. There. Okay, that looks like it's properly shielded from everything else. Now I'm going to cut off a little piece, double-sided tape here, and I'm going to just go ahead and use my snips. Yeah, the other thing that the double-sided tape also helps with is it kind of holds the Kapton tape together. And the Kapton tape does stick to it really well, so there we go. And we'll peel that off. Let's see, how do we want to do that? I think we will just go ahead and we will lay it just like that. Give it a press. And don't worry, when that air unit heats up, that thing's going to be stuck on there real good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and with that sort of mounted there, we'll give these cables a twist. There we go. Okay. And in that way, kind of measure how much I need. Looks like I should probably be okay to cut that off right about here. Just seem to give myself a little extra length. There we go. There. Okay. Use my thumb to take that off. My thumbnail, I should say. There we go. Give all these a good twist. All right. As I like to do, kind of, you know, I would probably like, you know, if you're not used to soldering, probably what I'm doing here is not a good idea. I've done enough soldering to where I am confident enough to know that I'm not going to really screw this up or drop solder everywhere. I'm okay, but yeah, like in a lot of cases, like some folks might even put like a little piece of paper or something like that over the electronics just to prevent boo-boos from happening. And believe me, boo-boos do happen. And you know, if you do get a solder blob all over your electronics, it's not the last you know, the end of the world there. There are ways of fixing it. I am going to not try to have to demonstrate that in this video, though. This is just straight up me building a quadcopter with some friends. Maybe hopefully you'll get some, you know, things that I do here that look like a good idea, or, you know, some other ideas on how you might do things to build these guys. There. All right. Perfect. Okay, those wires are now tinned. You can see, I mean, they're obviously a little bit long. So we're going to go ahead and trim those just a little bit. Do not need to be this long. So let's trim. All right, by the way, I put my finger over there so we don't end up with some kind of weird stray piece of metal flying around and causing a short or some other thing. That's the last thing that we want to have happen. Just be careful not to pinch your finger in your clippers. That's always a bad day. As you see, I'm cutting them down fairly short because really we don't have to have a whole lot of wire in contact with the pad. And, you know, as you kind of see here, I like to have the all the way up to the insulation into the solder blob. I just think that that looks neater, and I think it kind of keeps the connections, well, better insulated, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So here we go. All right, we're going to flux on that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and give these another twist. If you look at this, looks like it's gonna be ground first, so ground 5 volts. And then I've got TX and then RX. Well, RX here and TX, but remember, TX goes to RX, RX goes to TX. I'm gonna work from the outside in on the first one, which is going to be ground. All right, here we go. And again, we are soldering left-handed. Woohoo! Ambidexterity. Let's hear it for ambidexterity. Here we go. Okay, the next one is red. Oops. Let's make sure we're pointing it the right way, folks. And grab it from here. Oops. Choke up on a little bit. That's gonna go right there. Here we go. All right, and then the next one after that is gonna be the yellow wire. Wait a minute. Yes, the yellow wire. There we go, and then finally the white. Well, all right, I think everything is hooked up. And finally, our little GPS/remote ID. And you'll see as it goes down in there, like there's a lot of stuff in the way. I mean, you gotta really force it to get in there, and it does kind of hold. What I'm actually gonna do, just to kind of help reinforce this, is I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of this two-sided tape on the end of that, and then shove it in there so that it stays pretty good. Okay. Go ahead and tap right on the bottom here. Oh, cut this side off. Okay, then we'll go ahead. Now we've got that nice and exposed. So this is the button that we need to use when we set up and program it. So yeah, let's go ahead. Let's see, this guy goes in. There we go. That's now plugged in. Now let's work this down. We want to make sure that button and stuff are up. So we'll go ahead and put this down into that slot. Move some stuff around. There we go. There we go. All right. There we go. Oh yeah, we also need to go ahead and finally do that zip tie. Get that started. Okay, that's our string loose there. Let's get rid of that little loop there. These nylon nuts. It's nice of them to provide these parts for you. Of course, I do have them if I need them. By the way, buy lots of these things because you will go through them. And then as long as there's enough back pressure on there and the gummies themselves are giving some of that back pressure feedback, you don't have to worry about these being on terribly tight. In fact, you kind of want to avoid that if necessary because of the isolation dampening that the rubber gummies there provide. There goes two. So we'll do that on the page a little quicker. There's the last two we need. All right. All right. There we go. Okay, everything seems to be situated. Everyone is tied down where it needs to be. I'm definitely liking that. That's looking good. Okay, grab our multimeter and do some continuity tests. So let's grab that guy. All right, first we will hit the XT60 plug. You might get a moment of continuity when you first do this. Okay, that's doing the right thing. You can see it's kind of charging up there on that. Cool. Okay, let's reverse this now. When we reverse this, we should get a little bit of a beep for a second. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Now we will hit the negative terminal there, and let's first of all try like the USB. There we go. Perfect. USB on the DJI. Perfect, so we know that's grounded right. Let's try the ground plug on the receiver. Perfect, and let's try the ground plug on the GPS. All right, so we can definitely feel confident that everything is soldered together and hooked up right. Now, this is normally where I would show you me using a smoke stopper or something like that. Actually, I use a bench power supply. I set it at 1 amp and plug it in just to see if there's any problems. I don't have any stuff set up there, so you just have to take my word for it that that's what I did. And now we will plug it in and make sure that we hear all these stuff that we want to hear. Grab a quick battery here. Okay, no magic smoke. All right, look at that. We got green lights on the receiver, green light on the GPS. All right, everything is looking great. And let's see, we have lights on. And I got lights on the 04 area. Perfect. Let's do the last piece, because really what's left is the top. Yes, actually we'll take this top plate. All right, and again, you know, there's 2 countersink screws that go here. So this is gonna go on top like that. There we go. So why don't we go ahead and take care of that really quick. And then also keep in mind, so there should be there should be at least 6 more screws. Now, I am going to, well, hold on, let me start with this. Get this out of the way. All right. There we go. And we're already cross-threading something there. You know, sometimes these power screwdrivers aren't all that they're cracked up to be. There's that guy. All right, now, as you may recall, there's 2 pieces to go with this. This comes with a set of these guys here. So these are meant to sit up here with the countersink screws. And I really like the way that this frame has done this, because what this essentially does is, if you're going to put a GoPro mount up here, and I'll show you, it gives a lot of contact surface there. Here, maybe that's a better way to show it. There we go. For this. Now, the other thing I like to do, because the screws here are relatively short, right? So they'll go through, the screw will go through here. And so that's what it ends up looking like. Very cool. And that goes down through here. But since I am using the GoPro mount, you can see, I mean, it doesn't go that far past the frame. And I'm not as, you know, because I kind of like to print sort of thick bases here. I'm going to source my own screws for this part. And so I got a bag of these. And so these are the same thing, the countersunk screws. But you can see they are considerably longer. And so I'm going to use these instead. And then I'll hang on to these other shorter countersink screws for other uses down the road. Here we go. All right, grabbing my camera mount there, and let's grab this. So what I like to do, of course, is we get this into the TPU first, because the TPU will sort of hold the screws in place. And then there we go. There's one. All right, there we go. Got those started. Lucky for us, TPU is super flexible. Make sure these are relatively tight. Which they are not. And so all I have to do is have our GoPro fly off on this. There we go. All right. Let's grab my GoPro 13 black, slide it on in here in the mount. All right, there we go, folks. Oh, and one last thing, folks. Almost forgot. That is the motor. So let's get that taken care of too. So we're going to go ahead and stay with the theme here. Set it next to stick to the carbon here. There we are. And then we'll kind of hold these motor wires on the leading edge of the arm, like I said, because I always run with the props spinning out. So this will, if I get a bent prop or something like that, having them on the outside edge of the arm helps. Go ahead here, make sure that the motor wires are being held against the front leading edge of the arm. There we go. And then we'll just snip the end of this right here. There we go. Look at that. Boom. All right. And now I'll rinse and repeat for all the arms. And then, might also throw some battery straps in there. In fact, I might actually take the top off again for that. And I'll show you the finished product once I've done all that. Well, now we come to the final part where we play with our computer. By the way, I should confess, I am normally a Linux guy, but I am going to do this on a Windows computer because I know most of you out there probably use Windows. There's not a whole lot of difference, and if you guys are interested in how to do this on Linux, there's a couple of little things you need to do. Hit me up in the comments below. First, we're going to go ahead and we are going to run Betaflight Configurator. And by the way, there is a web version of this thing. And the reason I am not using it is it's likely that this flight controller was shipped with an earlier version of Betaflight that the online version doesn't support. You can use the SpeedyBee app on this guy to configure it. But in this case, again, I'm just going to take the most popular route that most of you guys are probably doing and use Configurator in Windows. So here we go. I'm going to plug in my quad. And let's see, there we are. Okay, this is normal. Warning, yep. No accelerometer, yeah, it hasn't been calibrated. Okay, so what do we got here? So this ships with Betaflight 4.3. Boo! I mean, 4.3 is okay, but we are up to 4.5. There are certainly enhancements with OSD, especially when it comes to digital video systems like this. So I'm going to go ahead and flash this to the latest version. So we'll click Update Firmware. This does have an auto detect button. Let's see if it does it. SpeedyBee F7 V3, cool. 452 now, all right, why not? Let's see, full chip arrays, yes, yes, yes. Okay, let's check our options. We are using Crossfire. Do I need Acro Trainer? No, I don't. Let's see, so GPS, everything else looks good. We are going to be using D-Shot as a motor protocol. We're going to go ahead and load firmware online. There we are, and flash firmware. And, oh, this is a very good point. By the way, before you flash any flight controller, please create a backup of the original flight controller. This will give you the option to do it here. I highly recommend that. SpeedyBee F7 4. Oops. 4.3. Okay, so, oh, defense. Here, I'll call it that. All right, that way, if we ever do have to reflash this and there are any custom settings from the manufacturer, I'll be able to restore those pretty quickly. So now you can see it is doing a chip erase. If, by the way, on Windows, you run into problems here where for some reason it just says that it lost control or connection to the flight controller, you should see DFU up here in this when you're doing the flash. If that doesn't come up, or this complains about not being able to find the flight controller after it reboots and tries to flash, it's very likely you need to run the driver fixer. I'll put a link in the description below to that as well. All right, looks like it flashed. Let's go ahead and now we will connect. Accelerometer is enabled but has not been calibrated. Close. Let's just confirm. Okay, I do see Betaflight 452. Let's see where we are here. We'll go to setup first, and we are on a relatively flat surface. So we might as well just go ahead and calibrate that now. First thing you want to look at is on this setup tab. This is a 3D representation of the drone right here. And let me bring this up on screen as well, so you can kind of see here where I am manipulating. Okay, so you can see I rotate the drone, it rotates in the screen. I pitch the drone forward. Oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I pitch forward and look, it's pitching back. I pitch back, it's pitching forward. I roll right, now it's left. Oh yeah, remember, I mounted this flight controller backwards. So as far as the flight controller is concerned, the front of the drone is on the rear, and so that's why when I pitch forward, it's pitching back. Let's go ahead and fix that right now. So we'll go here to the next tab, the configuration tab, and right here where you see board and sensor alignment, here is a yaw. So yaw is of course the rotation on the flat plane. Since I have the flight controller in here backwards, I'm going to set this to 180 and save and reboot. All right, since I just rotated this thing 180 degrees, why not? We'll go ahead, we're back in the setup tab. Let's go ahead and recalibrate the accelerometer just for fun. Let's check out and see how it acts now. So I'll pick it up. All right, I pitch forward. Oh, look at that. I pitch forward, the drone pitches forward. I pitch back, it pitches back. Roll right, roll left, there we go. We're gonna go to configuration, and we're just gonna make sure again that all of the options that we're using on this thing are enabled. We're gonna have to do things like turn stuff on in ports, and if some of these things aren't enabled, it won't work. Accelerometer, barometer, no magnetometer, but we do have a barometer on the flight controller, and I am going to leave the accelerometer enabled. This is important for GPS rescue. GPS rescue uses the accelerometer to kind of know the attitude, pitch angle of the drone and stuff. Arming, we're going to set this to 180 degrees. That basically is going to disable this feature. It is a safety feature. If you're, on an incline or something like that, that's more than 25 degrees, you should be able to arm. So we're just going to set that to 180 to make sure. Let's see, we do have GPS, so we're going to turn on GPS. Another thing we are going to do, by the way, since I don't have a buzzer in here, is we are going to go ahead and turn these guys on. This will turn your motors into a beeper. When it starts up, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, those are the motors making that noise. I'm going to set it a beacon of 5. I think 5 is the most annoying tone, so for me it's a lot easier to find. So we'll save. Let's go to our ports tab. Our receiver is on UART2, so we want serial RX there. The GPS is on UART6. Here we go, GPS. And by the way, for the SpeedyBee GPS module here, you need to set this to 1152. The auto detect fails, and then it won't work. Save and reboot. There we go. Okay. By the way, so now we see our GPS starting to light up here. That means it's working. And look, I've had it plugged into USB, so clearly the GPS has a fix. I'm going to jump ahead here real quick. Let's look at GPS and see what it looks like. Oh, look at that. Look at all those satellites. Look at my house. Look at that. Here we are. All right, cool. How many sats do I have? 10. Fantastic. And that's indoors. I'll dig with that. All right. An actual remote ID module. That's cool. In fact, actually, I will go ahead and use Galileo as well. Might as well do this while I'm in the GPS tab and configuring things. Oh, and then the set home point once, I do turn that on. Here's what'll happen. If you're out somewhere in the field and maybe you crash and you disarm somewhere else, if you don't set this, every time you arm, that sets the home point. I always like to do this so that home point is always set the first time I arm, because frankly, that's always going to be home, right? So we're going to do that. And then as far as ground assistance type, I'll set that to auto detect, and let's save and reboot. Failsafe, since we have GPS, it only makes sense that we use GPS rescue. So this means that if we failsafe, the drone is going to automatically fly home. Now, I'm not going to get into all of these settings here. I'm going to set this to minimum satellite 7. Allow arming without fix. I'm going to turn that on. And that is because sometimes you have to wait for GPS when you're out in the field, especially when all the electronics are on. And sometimes I just want to fly now. I really only worry about the satellite count when I am in a situation where I think I might fail safe or could end up with my drone in a place that I can't get to. So please don't pay attention to the video where I lost it. Clearly that was one of those situations. So we're going to save and reboot here. The presets, let's look for WTF. Here we go. Options, that is on UART1. So we're going to pick that. We'll leave these selected and we'll pick. Next thing is we want to find our RC control link. So we are using Crossfire, 50 Hertz. And let's see, we're going to do HD freestyle here. Pick that, save and reboot. Okay, next thing to do is let's make sure the motors are set up properly. So let's plug into USB on the computer. There we go. And we'll see, of course, my props are not on. So let's make sure we're there. And we will need to plug in a battery for this. Well, so we'll go down to motors. Ah, yes, first thing, because I like, you see all these are set up to run props in. I like to run props out. So that should be the first thing we go ahead and fix. So save and reboot. There we go. Okay, next thing, we can run DShot 600 because we are running an F7 processor. But if you recall, our PID loop rate is at 3.2 because this has a BMI gyro. So we can choose DShot 300, but for now, I'm just going to go ahead and pick DShot 600. We probably don't want bidirectional DShot enabled until we actually run these tests. So let's learn it, because there are some bugs that have caused the motors to ramp up full throttle when you're doing the motor wizards. So we will enable bidirectional DShot last. So let's go ahead and first we're going to run the reorder motors. Now, if you know, it always starts with motor 1 and goes for 4. Motor 1 is here. Remember, we've got this thing flipped 180 degrees, the ESC included, so we should expect the motors are definitely out of order. So let's do the reorder. I understand the risks and I do have my props off, so let's start. Okay, so right now it's saying, hey, I'm twitching a motor, and you can see right now this is this motor, so we will click here. That's that motor, so we'll click here. That's this motor up here, so we'll click here. And that motor down there, so we'll click here, and then we'll save. Okay, so our motors have now been properly reordered. Now the next one is, now we do the motor direction wizard. So let's make sure, and remember, I've got my props set to spin out. Use a diagram here to remind yourself which direction the motor should spin. So let's do that. I do agree, my props are off. Run the wizard. And so what the wizard is going to do is once we start, it's going to spin all the motors. And we want these props out. Let's use an analog here to help with that. Let's see. Okay, so this one is spinning that way. That's good. Okay, this one's spinning that way, which is wrong. So let's fix that. That is motor number 2. Okay, that's going to reverse order. Now it's spinning the right way. Let's check this one. Let's see, we want that spinning out. Yep, there we go. That's spinning out. And this one, oops, just lost the problem, and that's spinning out. There we go. All of our motors, looks like we only had to reverse motor number 2. Fantastic. And there we go. Okay, and finally we can, if you want to absolutely double check and verify, is we can go ahead now and we can actually spin each motor. One, yep, that's this one, and it's spinning the right way. Motor 2, yep, that's that one, it's spinning the right way. Motor 3, yep, and it's spinning the right way. And finally motor 4, and yep, it's spinning the right way. So now we have our motor order set. Next thing that we're going to do while we're here is now we're going to enable bidirectional D-shot. We're going to agree to that. We do have 14 motor pulls, so that is good. And now we'll save and reboot. Now when this thing reloads, the next thing, there we go, we should hopefully see now we're actually seeing some error counters here that'll tell us how many errors we get back. And this should be 0 at this point because we've got a battery plugged in. Even if you do have a couple of errors, that's all right. Just make sure they're not incrementing at this point in time. So now we are looking good on the motors. We will continue to the last elements that I'm going to configure. What I'm going to do here is I am going to actually open up a config dump from another one of my quadcopters because there's actually some stuff in here I can use on this one. And so here's what we're going to do. So let's take a look at our modes. Right now you'll see that no modes are set. Well, the good news is, since my radio is set up to work the same on all my quads, the modes are going to be the same from quad to quad to quad. We're going to go to the CLI, and then what we're going to look for is we're going to look for this that starts with aux. This describes the aux are the modes, and so these are actually channel ranges and how the modes are activated. So we're going to copy this. We're going to Control V and then hit Enter, and then type save. And now if we actually go to the modes here, you're going to see, look at that. Here's my arm. All my modes are set, GPS rescue. So these are the modes that I have set up. I didn't have to play with this because my radio is set up the same. All right, next thing that I'm going to look at, which I can use, is going to be OSD. I'm going to use the same OSD settings on my other DJI quads. And so everything that starts with set OSD, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. There we go. I'm going to copy that. And we're going to go to the CLI. We're going to paste that. All right, we're going to save. All right, and now if we go ahead and navigate to our OSD tab, look at that. I have all the elements the way that I like them. That's another thing I don't have to futz with. And then lastly, of course, is going to be my rates. So let's get back to here, and we're going to look for, so this is PID profiles. Here we go, rate profile. So we're going to start with rate profile 0, and we're going to copy all of this stuff. We're going to go to the CLI. Control V to paste. There we go, save. All right, and now if we go to PID and tuning rates, you'll see there are my rates. So that's the last thing that I can go ahead and copy from them. Now, when it comes to tuning, the defaults in Betaflight's tuning tab here are going to be just fine. Everything is set to vanilla. There are certain profiles that you can pick under presets. Look for tunes. And we can pick a tune from here. We can use the Superfly Freestyle 5-inch, and this is actually a pretty good one to do. For me, however, another CLI thing we're going to do, this particular quadcopter is the exact same parts from the one that I lost. For all of the PID stuff, I can literally just copy all of this over. So I'll copy that, paste that in here, save. And so now I have the exact PID profile for exactly this same quadcopter. We can go to PID tuning and you can see, there we are. There are the actual PIDs that I'm using. Same thing, go to filters. You can see the filters I'm using. So that might be a nice shortcut for you, as this isn't really intended to be for specifically beginners, but just kind of like a quick shot for somebody who's done this before and would like to pick up some additional shortcuts. Last item I recommend that when you start doing this, or when you start flying a brand new quadcopter, change this particular debug mode. Look for gyro scaled. And so I'll just type in scaled. We'll do that, and then let's save and reboot. And so that way it's going to show you what the unfiltered gyro stats are if you need to do some additional tuning in black box. So now at this point in time, it is time to put some props on it, button it up, I'll show it off, and then we need to take it for a test flight. All right, so check her out. There we go. I might put a nicer picture on this video. I'm about to take it on its maiden flight. Want to see? Me too. Let's go. Well, here we go. Now we're doing our test flight. This is either going to suck or not. All right, first we're going to go ahead and we'll arm. Do our quick test. Okay, yaw's good. Forward, back, left, right. All right, looks like we are good. So here's the one that we wonder if we want to try. Okay. Here we go, GPS rescue. What do we think? Look at that, and there is our GPS. All right, and GPS rescue worked. Wow.